Okay, we can agree on a lot of things. The One Piece anime series is known for its action scenes, and it has a lot of really badass moments, but we have to agree on this. That scene where Kyros cut off his own leg just to continue to attack Doflamingo was one of the most hard-ass scenes I've ever seen from the entire series, and oddly enough to me, it's kind of like a PG Bizarro version of the scene from Berserk, where Guts cuts off his own arm when he's being pinned down by demons in order to stop Griffith from having his way with Casca. You haven't read Berserk? Check it out! It's a little darker than One Piece. But this week's episode was very simple but very good. It's pretty much that one major scene right there where Kyros cuts off his own leg after being captured by Doflamingo's men, and in a rage he cuts off his own leg and attacks him, and it's really awesome! Really, Kyros just proves that he has the testicular fortitude of a sexual tyrannosaur. This guy's a badass. The scene itself is also just really exciting and frankly just kind of creepy, and a lot of that just has to do with Don Quixote's family. They're just all so weird and twisted looking, and even after being turned into a toy, he continues to escape with King Riku literally jumping out of the window. And then all the sad parts of the episode finally kick in, where he finally gets to see the death of Scarlet, where she dies in his arms. She doesn't even know that it's Kyros. She has no memories of him. And that's just, again, reinforcing that Sugar's abilities are very disturbing and very messed up when you really think about it. I mean, just the fact that all of her memories of Kyros were wiped away, she has to be considering, like, where did my daughter come from? How is she even here? It's gotta really mess with her head and just completely destroy her entire backstory and upbringing. And that's what makes the entire scene just all the more sad. And of course it has all the cheesy symbolism, like when the rain actually hits Kyros' eye and it actually looks like tears. Because apparently when they're toys, they actually don't have the ability to cry or do any of that stuff. But the final part of the episode is one of the goofier aspects of the entire Dressrosa arc. It's a scene where Usopp is seemingly defeated by Treble and Sugar confidently walks up to Usopp, who's all tied up with Treble's weird, sticky, gooey, mucus shit, and she takes that weird Tabasco Tontada grape, puts it into his mouth, and there's a lot of build-up to this scene. You're just waiting for it to happen. And they pan to, like, every character like a bomb is getting ready to go off. And I did like the detail where you see the red slowly emanating from Usopp's mouth, and his face just suddenly twists into this freakish, nightmarish form, and he spews fire into the sky. And it's so sudden and ridiculous that it actually catches Sugar off guard. She completely freaks out and loses her shit and loses consciousness. To be continued screen, and that was actually a pretty good way to end this week's episode, even though it did feel a little disjointed, because it was like 90% the Kyros story, and then here we go, here's Usopp again. But I do love the twist. I think it's really good. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Piece? A pretty average episode, but it did have two really good moments in it. The whole scene with Kyros cutting off his leg is great. It's not a very graphic scene, and it wasn't very graphic in the manga either. And he's basically saved by being turned into a toy. I guess like it just sort of like healed immediately the wound, because I guess toys don't have any blood or anything. And obviously, if you look at the preview of next week's episode, now that Sugar has been defeated, everybody that was turned into a toy is going to come back, including Kyros. Yes, the big hero himself is going to come back, and I'm sure he's going to want to get some revenge against the Don Quixote family, especially against Diamante. Otherwise, this episode was just sort of simple. Like I said, it was a lot of like old scenes that we've seen before, but I really did like the ominous nature of the beginning when he walked into the city, and I did like that first opening shot of the city. It was just very disturbing, just the red fire, the large pan, you just see all this destruction, you just hear people screaming. It really makes the whole Dressrosa arc all the more disturbing, and I just like the detail too. Like, they just captured the castle, and they put Doflamingo's symbol right on the front. That's just really messed up right there. Otherwise, there really wasn't that much action. It's really just that one scene with Kyros where he cut off his own leg, which was just, God, that was so awesome. It totally reminded me out of something from Berserk. And Kyros honestly does kind of remind me of a character or something like from that series. And then you have the scene with Usopp at the end, which is just really funny and really just The actual look on his face, you know, he makes a ton of weird faces, but I just love the way his eyes, like, twist up into the sky, and then just the massive fire. It's a ridiculous scene, and it's absolutely goofy, and they chose a really good place to put the to be continued screen, because it's just going to build on the anticipation of next week's episode, which, if the preview's any indication, it does actually look like it's going to have some pretty good animation and artwork, so I can't wait to see that. But this week's episode right here was pretty good. It finished up the whole Kyros backstory arc, and we're finally getting back to the important stuff, and Sugar has just been seemingly defeated, so things are really going to start moving ahead at this point in the story. There's also a little bit of action in Kurita Coliseum if you wanted to see Jesus Burgess destroying the ring with his elbow abilities, literally not even caring who he's attacking, and all of the fighters have actually caused Kurita Coliseum to start falling apart, and that's just insane right there. So I cannot wait to see next week's episode. A powder keg is going to go off. This one right here was just a pretty average, but pretty fun episode of the series that had some cool moments, and you should follow it if you're following the One Piece anime series. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 3 out of 5. Pretty decent episode. Check it out, guys. Pretty good stuff. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of One Piece in the comments section below. What did you think about the Kyros backstory? And what do you think is going to happen next in the Dressrosa arc? Remember, guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.